Hello. Hi. Happy Monday. Today is my, one of 2 days off this week. My other day off is Thanksgiving. Today's my union sanctified day off. I am currently in a show at Seattle Rep. Well, I'm understudying for Little Women at Seattle Rep right now. You should come see the show if you're so inclined. It's really good. It's the new Kate Hamill adaptation of Little Women, and it focuses a lot more on like the gender stuff. We've got two trans non-binary actors playing Joe and Lori, and it's just a very, very good show, and it makes me cry every single night. And I am understudying for Beth and Meg and Hannah and Mrs. Mingott, and it's very fun. So tomorrow we actually have our second understudy rehearsal. So just wanted to drop all that on you to say that because it is a show at like an equity house, meaning that we have to follow the actors' equity rules. So we have every Monday off. So I'm trying to do a lot of things today. I'm going to be cleaning, which I have been doing a little bit, but I'm going to be doing some more deep cleaning here in a bit. I really want to go to the yarn store because I had some yarn that I was going to use to make to knit my first sweater, but I realized that I don't love knitting with roving yarn, and the yarn I had was this like tweed roving yarn that I didn't really enjoy knitting with. So I think I want to get I either want to do like a hand dyed kind of speckle thing, or I want to do a tonal yarn, like a semi-solid. I don't know if I want to do like a super variegated or like hand painted yarn. I don't know, we'll see. But I have two different patterns that I'm deciding between right now. I have the Ursa sweater from Jacqueline Sislak, I think is how you say their name. A very talented designer. And it's this like beautiful cropped sweater. It's chunky. It uses half brioche stitches, which I feel is maybe a little complicated for a first sweater, but I've started it before and then I ended up frogging it because I didn't like the yarn that I chose. Also, when I first started it, I started knitting it 2 years ago, and in the 2 years since, my personal style has gone through, like my personal taste, I guess, has gone through a bit of an evolution. So I had bought this beautiful rust-colored roving wool yarn from Kins & Co, and it's so pretty, but I'm not a neutrals guy, so I'm doing, I just want to do something more bright. So I have that, which I think will go quicker because it is chunky yarn. But the other pattern I want to do is the Felix sweater, or this Felix pullover. I can't remember the designer's name, but it's a very, very popular like first sweater pattern, I think for good reason. It's beautiful. And it has these like really pretty like eyelet increases along the shoulder seams. So I think that's the one that I'm going to go for my first sweater. I think it'll teach me a lot. I want to learn how to use magic loop for the sleeves. So I'm going to double check that I have the needles that I need. And then I'm going to go after I clean, we're going to go get some yarn. And then I also think that this evening I am meeting up with a friend for drinks at 5. But I think when I get back from yarn, we're going to bake. I did a little blog post for it on my Patreon this summer for how to make a Swedish almond cake, but I want to have it documented in video form. So we'll do that. And then I can bring it to understudy rehearsal tomorrow. So what do you think, Pepper? Does that sound good to you? I think it sounds good to her. So join me as I clean, and then we're going to go buy yarn. So, and actually we might also buy some soil for my little house plants because I think they just need, I texted one of my plant friends, hi Leanne, and she was like, I think you just need to shake off some of the nursery soil and put some fresh stuff in there. And I was like, okay. I only own 2 plants and I don't want them to die. She said that they seem happy, so I maybe don't need to panic as much as I am. I also have some other stuff that I'm working on that I will show you, but first, cleaning. Before we get into the rest of this video, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform filled with thousands upon thousands of classes covering essentially every subject you could ever want to learn, with everything from lifestyle lessons like how to manage your time better and productivity skills to particular crafts such as crochet, knitting, illustration, figure drawing. etc. If there is something you want to learn, Skillshare's got a class on it. So as I've been getting more and more into fiber arts, I have been finding myself thinking more and more just about like the longevity of my clothes in general and how I can prolong their life and just make my clothes stronger and better. And lucky for me, the effervescent Bernadette banner has a class on Skillshare about hand sewing. Whenever I've mended stuff in the past, I kind of just go at it with a needle and thread and hope that it sticks. So having Bernadette just like so clearly and patiently walk through the basics of hand stitching, and she even teaches you how to do buttonholes, is a true godsend. She also even has like a level 2 course essentially on more advanced hand sewing techniques. So I'm excited to put those into practice so I can actually fix like the button band on my favorite pair of jeans. If you yourself have been wanting to unlock your creativity or expand your life skills, the first 500 people who click the link in the description will get 1 free month of Skillshare so that you may go forth and explore their entire library and expand your horizons. So thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video.
Like the justice system, to theoretically individual actors like cops, is pulling 2 contradictory means simultaneously. The process of deciding who will be a single staff member. Even the repeated failures of an execution method couldn't raise the question of systemic injustice because the inherent justice of some death penalty. I wrote an essay about the failures of lethal injection. At the time, I remember
LOL, JK, both of the yarn stores I wanted to go to today are closed. So, no yarn. But this does mean that I can go grocery shopping for Thanksgiving stuff, which is good. So I will do that. And then I will come home and I will bake. I've done so little baking. I haven't even made a pie yet. Oh, got to make sure that I have enough. I gotta add apples to my list. So actually we may not be making that little almond cake today. Today maybe actually we will make an apple pie. We'll see. I'm gonna lose daylight in like 3 hours, so we'll see if I can even film it. But at the very least we'll be able to make the crust before it gets dark. But I also don't want to bake my pie today if we're not eating it till Thursday. I have so little time because we have understudy rehearsal Tuesday and Wednesday. Ugh, it's fine. No. And at last, my favorite time is upon us. Pie time. I am slicing up my butter, slicing and dicing my butter right now to prepare it for the crust. But I made 4 little mini pot pies for Thanksgiving this year because it was me, Aries, and 2 of our friends. So 4 little mini pot pies worked out perfectly. And then I also made apple pie for dessert. So I made all of the crusts essentially a day ahead. I chopped all the veggies and made the crusts a couple days ahead. So on Thursday morning, I would be able to just sort of assemble everything. So I am using Claire Saffitz's all butter flaky pie crust recipe from her book Dessert Person. And then for the apple pie filling, I'm using a recipe from King Arthur Flour. And then the pot pie recipe is from a blog called The Candid Appetite. And so I will have all of these linked in the description below. The pot pies I've made for Thanksgiving for the last 3 years, and I love them because it's so much easier than cooking off a whole turkey. They're also vegetarian. I did add in chicken this year for the sake of Aries and his friends, but they are originally vegetarian and the recipe is so good. But now I'm putting all of the butter that's been chilling in the fridge. I've thrown that into my dry ingredients, and now it's a matter of smushing it all in there because I don't know how familiar you are with pies, but cold butter is the key to a good pie crust. So you want to make sure that it's cold when it goes into your dry ingredients, and then the warmth of your hands will soften it a little bit, but you just sort of, first you mix in all of the cubed butter and you sort of work that in so you get a very crumbly, coarse meal texture kind of thing. And then you add in the sliced butter and then you get these slabs of butter. And so those little pea-sized chunks of butter combined with the slabs just creates this beautiful, incredible pie crust. And then you throw in the ice water to bring it all together. You want to keep it cold because you don't want the butter to melt, but you want the butter to stay in chunks. And then when you bake it off, it's just so good. So I love this pie recipe. If you don't already have Claire Saffitz's book, cannot recommend it enough. It's incredible. But I've been using, like I was saying, I've been using the pot pie recipe for the last couple of years. I've also been using this combination of this pie crust and this pie filling for my apple pies for the last couple of years. And it's such a winner. It's such a good pie. It just makes the perfect apple pie. It's delicious. And I maybe have 2 slices left. I had a slice of it for breakfast this morning. It's a great apple pie. Oh, this was a thing. This is something that I only understood this time doing the recipe, is that after you wrap it up in the plastic wrap, you actually want to squish it down so that it fills in all the gaps in the plastic wrap so it can relax. But now that pie crust is made, and now I am making the black pepper rosemary crust for my pot pies. So obviously it's more of a savory crust. I honestly could have added in more rosemary. I don't know why I was afraid. I think because I was already going to be using so much rosemary in the filling, I thought that it would be overpowering, but I should have just added in the full 2 tablespoons. Or maybe it was a full tablespoon. I should have added in the full tablespoon. Alas. We live and we learn, eh? I wanted to talk a bit about what I've been up to for the last month and why I've basically been disappeared off social media. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I am understudying for Little Women at Seattle Rep, and every time I book a theater gig, I seem to forget how much energy and time it takes out of me and how all-consuming the theatrical process is, almost especially as an understudy, because your brain is filled with all of the roles you're covering. Well, at least for me, I'm covering multiple roles. I'm covering 3 actors and in total 5 roles, even though one of those roles is just like a messenger who has like 2 lines. But so it's 4 roles basically. And so my brain is crammed full of all of the lines for those different parts, all of the blocking for those different parts, the emotional notes for those different parts. It's Little Women, so it's an emotional play. And it's just exhausting. So like even during rehearsal or during tech, where I've talked to my fellow understudies about this, where like it feels like a lot of the time we're just kind of sitting around. I don't understand how we're still so exhausted at the end of the day. And it's because our brains are essentially in like an almost panic mode constantly for like the entire run of the show, because you do all your work, you get all your lines memorized, you have all of your blocking down, you know the emotional beats of your character, but there is every chance that none of that is ever going to be seen by anybody, and none of it is ever going to go anywhere. And so, but then there's also a chance that you will wake up tomorrow morning to a call from your stage manager telling you that you're going on for the matinee. And my last understudy gig that I did with Sense and Sensibility this past January, I went on about like 7 or 8 times for each of my tracks. And so having gone on now as an understudy, I like know what it feels like and I know how it goes. And so I do have that as like a bit of a comfort, but it is the sort of like constant, the constant anxiety and the constant, what if today's the day, takes a toll on you. So it's been a very, it's been a bit of an exhausting process, but it's been so fun. Every time I get a theater gig, like I said, I forget how much it takes out of me, and I always go into it thinking that I'll be able to balance my theater work as well as like my YouTube stuff and my illustration things, my Patreon stuff. And again, my energy is an extremely finite resource. And so as a result, I kind of get tunnel vision and I just kind of lock into the theater thing. And I feel like I'm always in pursuit of finding balance between all of these things I want to do. It's very hard to want to do so many things and only have so many hours and so much energy in a day. Now I am doing something to the pie dough. This is for the apple pie. This is a little trick that Claire talks about in her book, where you essentially roll out each half of the dough. So this is my top crust, which is a smaller section than my bottom crust. And you essentially just roll it out into a little rectangle, and then you do a little letter trifold. And that just, it's a very, very simple lamination of the dough to create more layers for the butter in the dough, and it just makes it flaky and beautiful and delicious. If you think about croissants is this process done like 10 times. Croissants are such like homemade, handmade croissants are such a labor of love. Maybe one day I'll make them. But so I've done that, and then I added a little bit of water because I didn't want the dough to crack too much. And then I roll it into a little disc before I wrap it back in plastic wrap. So that way it's like easier to roll into a circle. Rolling pie dough out into a circle is always a challenge for me, but this makes it a little bit easier. So I did that for both the top crust and the bottom crust. I just repeated the exact same process twice. And then you put those back in the fridge so they can rest and those layers can really sink in. And so then I started getting ready for more pot pie stuff, because this was Thursday morning. This was Thanksgiving morning. Also, shout out to my Girl Dinner Astarian shirt. Yes, it is a Girl Dinner Astarian shirt. It has his scars on the back, and I love it so much, and I wanted to show it off in this video. Because I come home from rehearsal, or I come home from the theater, and I'm a bit brain dead, I've been playing pretty much in any like free moment that I have. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3. It is such a fun, incredible game. And I've actually just been playing a lot more D&D lately in general. Because speaking about balance between all these things I want to do, I have found that D&D is like Dungeons and Dragons. Also, hi Sophie, my beloved. She looks perfect. I'm so mad it focused on my aprons and not on her, but look at her, my little sunbeam. I have found that Dungeons and Dragons is such a perfect marriage for my actor brain and for my artist brain, because not only do I get to role play and just like really flesh out these very fun characters that I make, but also my mind theater is ablaze with all of the environments and everything and character designs and everything. And sidebar, editing this section was nightmarish because the sizzle of the onion and the garlic and the rosemary and the thyme and the bay leaves, and then now I'm making a little roux with some veggie stock. It's just, oh my god, it made me so hungry. I'm hungry now watching it back as I'm recording this voiceover. I just want to make this recipe again because it makes for such good leftovers, and it's fair. Again, it's fairly simple. It's just a little time consuming. Anyway, yeah, I'm making it's basically like a little stew filling, essentially. I digress. Dungeons and Dragons has just been so fun, and like I have a couple characters that I've made for some campaigns that I'm doing with my friends, and I love both of my characters very much. One of them is named Francis. He is a pigeon Aarakocra ranger, so he's basically just like a little pigeon guy who like wields a bow. He's a homing pigeon who doesn't remember where his home is. Tragic, I know. And then my other guy is Chad Wickerton, who is a knowledge domain cleric, and he's basically like a rich private school daddy's boy type, graduated top of his class at the Wickerton Private Clerical Academy, where his father is the headmaster. And then he has a gay, tragic backstory too. Unrequited, well, not unrequited, but his best friend confessed to him, but he can't let his best friend know that he reciprocates his feelings because his dad would disown him, etc., etc. I cannot start talking about my D&D characters or I will never stop. But it's been so creatively fulfilling to basically just get to play pretend with my friends. And it's just, it scratches such a good part of my brain and really helps me realize and reinforce that my illustration brain and my actor brain don't necessarily need to live apart. Also now I'm working on the pie filling, so it's a matter of I put in all the spices and the sugar and the starch, like the thickening agent, essentially, so that way your fruit pie doesn't get too soupy. Apples aren't a super liquidy fruit, so it's not like a huge concern, but it just helps make sure that you don't have a weird soup in your pie, so you don't want a soggy bottom. You don't want a soggy bottom on your crust. So we're making that filling. Oh god, so good. And I have just been really having a grand old time playing Dungeons & Dragons, and then also playing Baldur's Gate 3, because the voice acting in that game is out of this world. It also just makes me want to double down on my aspirations of becoming a voice actor, because that would be a dream come true. I would love that. Maybe one day, someday. Ugh. Anyway, now I'm rolling out my pie crust. I got this very handy dandy little rolling mat from King Arthur. Well, they're not King Arthur Flour anymore. I think they're King Arthur Baking Company. But I got this very handy dandy rolling mat that also helps me keep track of how big my circles are. I didn't roll this quite big enough. That's my issue with bottom crusts on pies, is I never seem to roll them quite big enough. So then I have to do a lot of zhuzhing and pulling and stuff. But this ended up working out fine. As long as I have a little bit of overhang on all sides so I can seal in my top crust, I'm golden. And yeah, you can see where I'm pulling it before I push it back down, because you want to make sure that you secure it to the bottom of your pie tin. And then we're going to load in the filling. And this is a very deep pie dish. This is like a 2-inch deep pie dish. So that's 8 cups worth of sliced apples. So they can all kind of fit in here, and it domes a little bit. And then the King Arthur recipe also has you put these little diced bits of butter on top of the apples. I don't know why, but I just do it because I can't imagine that adding more butter could hurt. And then we're rolling out the top crust we're slicing up the top crust because I'm making a lattice. I love doing lattices on pies because they look so impressive and they are so easy. And you can even do a braided lattice, again, quite easily, because you just take your larger strips and you slice them into 3 smaller strips, and then you just braid them. And then you weave them like you would any of the other strips. It's so good. It looks so impressive, and it's so easy. And I feel like it just really elevates your baking. I'm very happy that I have creative pursuits that tickle like several different, facets of my creative brain. But I hate that whenever I'm in a theater gig, it feels, again, I get tunnel vision, and I have such a hard time thinking about my art stuff, and then I will get so wrapped up in my art stuff that I don't think about auditioning for theater gigs. And I just think I'm going to kind of always be in the pursuit of figuring out how to balance the two. And I don't know if I'll ever figure it out, but yes, Pepper. Hello, my love. Pepper has joined us to watch me weave this lattice. You see, it's quite easy. You just like work from corner to corner. And then as you lay down new strips, you just lift the other ones up to, put them over or under or what have you. And it looks so good. Yes, Pepper. Hi, baby. It just looks so good. And again, so then what you do is that you need the overhang so that way you can seal in the top crust and secure it. And then you crimp it. I usually just crimp it with a fork to get, again, to seal it all in and make sure that as your dough bakes off, it won't shrink too much. And then now I'm finishing it off with a little bit of buttermilk to add a really beautiful, like, glossy finish to the pie. And I also throw on some demerara sugar, which also gives this like beautiful crunch. And look at that pie. It's so beautiful. It looks even better when it comes out of the oven, but the like pre-bake is so beautiful already. I'm so proud of this pie. It turned out so good. So now I'm popping it in the fridge for like 10 minutes to firm up the crust before I pop it in the oven. And now we're assembling the pot pies, which is a matter of just like taking the filling and really loading it up into these little glass ramekins. And then I take the that savory pie crust that I made earlier, and I just chop it into 4, roll it out, and lay it over the top of these guys. Also, not me sneaking a bite. Again, it's so good. It's so good, and it's such an easy recipe. It was a wonderful, very, very low-key little Thanksgiving celebration. Not really even a celebration. We literally just went over to, me and Aries went over to Ari and Ian, and we just ate pie and played card games. So it was very fun. I also, again, I like this crust because of the buttermilk and the egg yolks in it. It's like really rich and beautiful. I don't show you these baked off, unfortunately, just because I baked them off at Ari and Ian's, because I just essentially prepared them and then baked them off when we got there. So they would be like hot and fresh and delicious, but very easy and wonderful. It was overall a successful baking day, which made me feel good. And it also just makes me remember how much I love baking and how I need to be doing more of it. So, and then here is the pie. Ain't she a beaut? She looks so good. I think the buttermilk definitely made the crust a little crispier than I'm used to, but I think it's gorgeous anyway. The apples are like beautifully thickened and sweetened, and it's just such a pretty pie, and I'm so proud of it. And that is all I have for you. I'm gonna have a slice of pie for breakfast in this clip that you're watching, but that's all I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you liked watching me bake these pies of mine. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons for their just generous, beautiful, wonderful, incredible support. I love y'all so much, and you know it, but I gotta say it. So thank you to my patrons. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you around on the World Wide Web. Stay frosty.